Hello and welcome to the Emerald City Video Podcast. I'm Russ, and this is Zach.
Hello. This time I'm not taking a drink of water right when you start, so which will be funny if I end up uploading this first or the previous episode
Yeah, yeah.
first anyway. But we'll probably do
Uh,
the yeah. But
but yeah, we originally wanted to do this episode last night. We recorded what was going to be a short reaction to the Superman trailer.
yeah,
Talked about Superman for an hour and went to bed. So
yeah, yeah, yeah. It's
so we're
it's hilarious that we ever think that we're going to be like, oh, it's just a 3 minute. We'll just we're
yeah.
not going to gas on about things, yeah, for or whatever. But yeah, since yeah, since my
Uh,
it's a Lilo and Stitch cup day so for coffee.
yeah,
So
I like it. My copy is completely out. And had I known that we were going to have a cascading series of delays. We were starting an hour later than we planned. I
yeah,
would have
yeah,
just made
yeah.
coffee, but
Yeah.
by the time that was evident, it was too late.
Let's see, a toilet seat need to be replaced or whatever. I have a bug bite in the middle of my forehead. I don't know how or where, but that happened. But so I needed to put something on it. Yes, so fun time. So um,
But
the madness is complete. It's this is my horrible segue into the first thing that I just wanted that HBO Max, or I'm sorry, Max is HBO Max again.
yes, and I think it's as of today, right? Like
I guess
already,
so. I mean it's literally when was this? I don't know when this video was by Gunn.
the James Gunn
Looks like it
thing
was
was
posted.
yesterday, and
It was
yeah,
yesterday. And so like oh, I mean I guess there's one way that I could do. I've never stopped
yeah,
typing in HBO Max, so
yeah.
so I actually don't know like what it's changed.
Right now, the website, like
Still
the
says
metadata on the website still says Max, and the logo still says Max.
oh, yeah, there's a press release from Warner Brothers saying, coming soon, same app, new-ish name. The plot twists everyone's been waiting for. Max is
Hmm.
becoming HBO Max, coming home this summer.
Okay, I in the video they said like starting tomorrow, and I think
Yeah,
today is the day that Peacemaker season two premieres. Either that or it's next week.
yeah,
Um, but whatever it was he was like Thursday something something on HBO Max, and
yeah.
then
Oh,
then they go into the joke about like HBO Max.
we're doing this. Yeah. So I guess they're accepting that. I think I mean, mind you, it's like awkward and kind of stupid, but either way, obviously, but like I think they
Yeah,
had to kind of accept the ridiculous nature of it. And what I would
yeah,
love if I was a HBO or Max or whatever Warner Brothers uh shareholder, I would love to know like anytime any company does these rebrands and then like switch back or do whatever, like it costs a metric shit ton of money, even though like even with HBO, like Lord only knows what like signage or whatever they had to change,
yeah,
like physically on lots or whatever that the, or
yeah,
paperwork. But it's just like the rebrand on a website, you may think it's just changing out a couple logos or something like that, but it's
right,
an incredible expense. Like you're talking
yeah,
about likely hundreds of thousands of dollars. And because just even even a logo redesign or something like that, like for a major corporation like HBO or I'm sorry, Max or HBO Max or
yeah,
is like a minimum of you're spending minimum $50,000. Like there's no
yeah,
way that you're doing that any cheaper. And so it's just it as HBO like HBO is the biggest with David Sleslov
yeah,
is probably like the biggest like within Hollywood, like what's wrong with Hollywood? Why aren't we
yeah.
what's going on or whatever? And I'm just like every single time I'm like we can how many films people could make for his salary every year and it doesn't seem like he's doing anything at all. Like what is the CEO doing? He's not a creative. He's not doesn't seem to be a good businessman. Like he doesn't actually know anything about branding or specialty. It's not like he's a even if it is a creative, he's not a facilitator. He's not like a Steve Jobs where it's just like, yeah, he was like, do this and make it better and like
He had an
inspire
understanding of
your
what
actual
people
people.
want. Like that's
Yeah,
really
yeah, yeah.
which
He also doesn't
fundamentally
seem to like
funny.
movies, which is a
Yeah,
big problem. So,
it's funny. I actually within the statement at Upfronts about HBO Max,
yeah,
they're like they kind of acknowledge that like the current executive team doesn't understand what people want
yeah,
because they were like, Well, we basically we tried to be Netflix. We wanted to have volume, and then we
Yeah.
discovered that like people don't want volume; they want like quality.
Well,
And I
they
think first of
want,
all, that's
yeah,
nonsense.
yeah,
I think people want both things,
yeah,
as evidenced by the fact that like yes, Netflix is the biggest streamer in the world because it has something for everybody, but
yeah,
also like they do their best to like get every AAA movie that isn't dedicated to Disney Plus or Max.
yeah, yeah.
Because like that's how you make money is by having like you know, and so
Mhm.
it's funny that like it's interesting to be the head of a movie studio and be
Yeah,
like we have to choose between more movies and better movies.
yeah.
It's like really because I feel like you just like decide that the movies you fund are going to be good. Like
My,
you
I,
know,
to me, my biggest thing is especially like, okay, so what is the not the product, but like what is the platform? What is the way? Like we're not seeing these movies in theaters. That's not like our big thing.
right,
That like if you're talking about HBO Max, you can talk about everything. And like my biggest thing is I can't find shit. Like Netflix
yeah,
is just a glob of things, and I get that, but like their algorithm is decent at showing me the next thing. But like on Netflix, for the most part, it's either like C and B level films that I didn't know existed at
right,
all, or Netflix originals that the only way that you know about things is that you're on fucking Netflix because Netflix doesn't seem to do any promotion whatsoever for anything other than, one or two shows a year, and then they spend a
right.
ridiculous sum of money promoting them, and they're just
And
kind of, they
also
do well. Yeah,
always things that are already a proven hit. Like they didn't,
yeah,
in spite of the fact that they spent all that money acquiring the rights from MGM, they spent no money promoting the first season of Wednesday, and
yeah,
then Wednesday turned into a giant hit, and now
yeah.
like you can't escape all the season two teasers. You
Hmm.
know?
Yeah, I feel like that's what their marketing team is like, well, we're not going to take any risks. We're just
Yeah,
going to promote the things that are already going to do well. Like Squid Games. Hey guys, it's coming out. You're never not going to know that that's coming out.
right.
Because even though if you have Netflix, you wouldn't be able to miss it because it's usually everywhere.
On the front page.
And no
Yeah,
matter what it's like one of those shows that no matter what you watch, it's going to be in your algorithm. And
yeah,
what drives me nuts about HBO is because or Max or whatever, it's because they have all I'm sure there's a lot of people that love the investigative detective shows and the
yeah,
true crime bullshit and the home remake overs. I don't give a goddamn. What I desperately want in any of these, whether it be Hulu, whether it be whatever, I want to be able to click and not see these things. And then if I go home, I hear about this home decorating show that maybe for some unknown reason I have interest in, and then I can
right,
search it. But for some reason to like look for like Turner Classic Movies and to see what they have, oh, do
yeah,
they have Casablanca or something like that? There is no, it's
right,
never going to be on the front page. I have to go and Google search it or whatever like sometimes it's like just even something that's like a month old, like to try to find, we're like, wait, is Suicide Squad still on HBO? Is still on HBO Max?
right. Or did it get
I'd have to search it.
turfed out to
Like,
somebody? Yeah.
yeah,
Um,
yeah, because it did disappear for which I understand that's the way these things are working now. I find it
yeah,
ridiculous that like if Disney made a film, it's ever not on Disney's platform.
yeah.
Like I don't understand. Like I'm sure there's some server load thing that they go, well, people aren't watching The Black Cauldron enough, and so we're gonna remove it. Even though I'm just like, I just feel like it's sitting on a server somewhere. I don't know.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, I mean,
yeah,
I know
but
that like these things cost money um uh I know that these things cost money to host,
yeah.
but it's very much one of those things where we I just I don't understand that impulse.
Yeah.
Um
Yeah. I mean, it's like again, like we're both physical media people, so it's not a thing. But I mean, like, Netflix is getting rid of which is surprised I haven't seen that much about. Netflix is getting rid of a bunch of their interactive shows that they used to have. And it's something I never cared for or whatever, but I mean, I know a lot of people that was a thing that they liked, it was basically
Yeah,
like, I guess, play along, I think there was a Black Mirror one that was
yeah,
that had some interactivity. They're getting rid of those. They're just, and since they don't have any physical media and they don't have anything with
right,
it, they're just gone, and they're just gone forever.
right.
And which is, one of our biggest our
Yeah,
biggest
and in
things that
terms of
we
lost media stuff, like
yeah.
that is a persistent thorn in the side of like the lost media
Mhm.
community is interactive stuff. Whether
Yeah.
like there's thousands and thousands of games that don't exist anymore because Flash
Yeah.
is
Oh my
like
God.
just not an accepted internet standard.
Yeah.
And um I don't understand the nuances of that or why that is or how that, but like from what I understand, like those files are functionally impossible to like like to download and to like back up and replace and
Yeah.
whatever. I do know that like for something like for something like an interactive movie or show, I'm sure somebody out there can, I don't know if they have, but probably have, can go to the effort of like going down every path, screen recording everything, and then you can make a DVD out of it.
Yeah. And
Sure, there's a
it's
way
always
to do
just,
that.
I always feel like this, like these type of things are like leaving money on, yeah,
Yeah,
because it's like, okay, well, if you're getting rid of it forever, then okay, but then why not? I don't know, why not offer? I mean, I always feel like we're
yeah.
repeating the same
Why
goddamn
why
things
is it
always,
not on,
but it's
why
like
is it not on DVD if you're just
make
making
one, make it $100, make it really
yeah,
expensive. I mean, it's just like I am a photographer, like photo books, where it's just like,
yeah,
no, we know a lot of people, we know that the um like a lot of people aren't going to want to buy this. So guess what? We're going to make a really nice one. It's going to be a coffee table thing, but it's going to be $150. And if you want it, it's
right,
$150, but it is fucking there. And we're going to make 1,000 of
right,
them. And that's,
yeah,
whatever. And I just like, that's to me just like, okay, I can't believe that like if you have the files, it
yeah,
seems, especially, I don't know the technicals of how the those things work
right,
on Netflix itself, because again, I never watched any of them,
yeah,
but I do feel as though that it's just like DVD is still like chapter menu. You can go. I've
yeah,
created DVDs before. I know that you can go, oh no, if you can have then a menu pop up and you go this way,
yeah,
excuse me, or you go that way. But it's just like in the age where we have all of these specialty um DVDs where it's just like, oh my God, like you can go on Shout Entertainment right now and you can spend for dark I really want to get I don't own Darkman on physical media, and I think I might actually have a beta somewhere. But I nothing I really I don't have a beta player right now though. So like you can buy either the disc and it's $25 25 or $30 for the Blu-ray 4K, or all the way up to $150 because it's like the different
yeah,
sets and things like that. I just don't understand.
yeah.
Like make something like that. Like or you know what, hand it
And
over and just be like, look at, Shout Entertainment, you do these things really well. Like, do you want to do something like this? And who
yeah,
knows if they would jump on it or not, but it's um I don't know. It's something that like we'll continue, ranting about, and it'll be a thing. So, but anyway, yeah. So I don't know if we had anything more on
no, we
the
just making
ridiculousness
fun
of
like
streaming.
everybody else on the internet, just needing to make fun of HBO Max.
Yeah.
And then again, like it really just boils down to like I actually saw a pretty good I can't remember who wrote it because it came to my email, but
Mhm.
there was a pretty good piece on Substack about how Zaslav just like clearly like this is like the moment. I think the headline was like Zaslav and the Peter Principle. It's like in case you had any doubts that this is a person who's been promoted to the point where he is bad at his job, but like not quite bad enough to be fired.
Yeah.
Like the HBO Max thing should be the piece of evidence that tells you like that's where we're at.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, I mean, I would think saddling company with $50 billion in debt
One
was
would think.
that moment, but
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah. But not in the age of private equity and shit like
yeah,
that, where it's
it's
just like what drives me nuts is that it's continually like so much of the expenses between like arts and entertainment that we have in society. It's just like you look at like where is this budget going? Where are these things? I guess this is a
Yeah,
decent lead into what we were talking about next. And it's like where is all this money going? And you're like when you can't seemingly you cannot produce a film for less than 130 million dollars right now. And then the expectations that it's $300 million dollars. If it doesn't make, if a $150 million film doesn't make $300 million dollars, then it's a bomb. And it's just like, well,
yeah,
like that's not how like a lot of like, if it pays for the work and pays a little bit more, like that's how things are working. Like as long as you're able to, you paid the bills and you keep everything moving. Like, yeah, if you break even on things, it's a lot of times fine, especially considering, there's a lot of films out there that break even and then win awards and give prestige and give, like basically
yeah,
it's a lot of like Hollywood politics of like, oh, okay, well, this producer won Oscars and so these actors might want to work with
yeah,
them and that, just all that kind of stuff. I just,
yeah.
yeah. I mean, we can never get past it because, I don't know. You said you're kind of like working on something about box office. I don't know if you have any about
Yeah,
like
I
the fact
haven't
that like
finished it
it's
yet.
all that it's all that we're going to probably talk about today. But like,
Yeah.
but it's like it's all that we kind of talk about, and it is
No,
something
and
that kind
that's
of
it.
drives me nuts. Yeah,
I mean, my like subhead on the article is basically like the world's on fire. Why do I give a shit how much money Superman makes?
yeah,
Um, you know, and it's just like there's so much wrapped up in box office now since it's like you said, it's the thing that
mhm,
people talk about. Like
yeah,
I think that um I think that post Hunger Games is when it got really bad. Like obviously it's always been a topic of conversation, especially in the
yeah,
industry trades and stuff.
yeah,
But like I remember like I don't know if you remember this, the projections for opening weekend for Hunger Games were like 75 million ish.
yes, that's right.
Um, and then the movie opened to 150 million, and everybody was
Mhm.
like, "What the fuck?" And then like a month later, Avengers came out, and it was the same kind of thing. Like the
Yeah,
projections that it would make like $90 million opening weekend, and there was
mhm,
this like hope that like maybe we'll crack 100 million. Like no comic book movie had ever opened it bigger than 100 million, other than I think The
yeah,
Dark Knight.
yeah,
But they were like, maybe we'll do it. Maybe we'll make 100 million. Like we could, this could be as big as The Dark Knight. And
mhm,
then the movie opened at 206 million.
yeah,
And like, I feel like, especially like the enthusiast press, like fan press, and like, like these different, like the non industry trades,
yeah.
got addicted to this like dopamine hit of treating it like professional sports, looking at the
Yeah.
scoreboard. Like, I know
Which is
for
another
comic
thing I
book
hate about
fans,
professional sport. You're like,
yeah,
I don't care. I don't care about. I find it ridiculous when you have the stories about, oh, this person's making $27 million or whatever. I'm like, I
yeah.
just don't fucking care. Tell me what, the bot, just not, yeah. Anyway, go ahead. Yeah.
But like the I remember being a comic book, and it's like every time Avengers crossed any kind of uh, milestone,
Yeah.
whether it was it passed Star Wars or whether it was just, oh, well, it made 750. Oh, now it made 800. Oh, now it's 850. Like
Yeah.
anytime it was a big round number, anytime it passed a big movie, anything like that, you had a new article. And it was basically the same article over and over again, just being like, hey, look, this movie's making a shitload of money.
Yeah.
Um, but you would like reframe it around like, this movie's making a shitload of money. In fact, it just passed Star Wars, you know?
Yeah.
Um, and I feel like that aspect of it, um, and of course those stories all got traffic because like inherently, if you have a big movie, then it has a big audience. Those people are excited to see that the movie's doing well, and so they
Mhm.
click on stories about how good the movie's doing, and it
Yeah.
becomes this like perpetual motion machine.
Yeah.
Um, but because we turned it into like sports,
Yeah.
we now have like the opposite thing, which is that we have people who are like actively rooting for things to fail and clicking on stories about things
Yeah.
being a disaster. And like we touched on when we did the Superman trailer response last night, we touched on the idea that like there's a bunch of people, mostly Zack Snyder fans, but like there's a bunch
Mhm.
of people who are all really actively rooting for the Superman movie to do poorly.
Yeah.
And like I've
And this
seen,
like complete imagine like what's the end goal of this? Like
yeah,
because it's like, do you think Zack Snyder is not making any more films, any more DC World
Yeah.
films ever. Like, I don't think there's a scenario. Like, yes, maybe there's a scenario, a weird one where DC becomes like Marvel was, 15 years ago, like in the start, and they're just throwing but as opposed to Marvel, where it's like one vision, they're like, fuck it, we'll throw him a project, we'll throw him like he can make this one-off, kind of thing, like a Joker or something like that, where it's just
Yeah.
like, okay, we'll just give this singular mind, singular vision, just shut the fuck. Honestly, I would almost do that if I was gone and be like, oh my fucking God, we'll just throw 50 here. We're going to give you $75 million and you can make the film. Anything more than that, like it's on you. That type of thing.
I
But
think the thing
it'll never
that
happen.
Snyder said, and of course Snyder vacillates on this all the time because he tells people oftentimes what they want to hear, I think. But the thing that I read from him that struck me as the most honest uh statement was that he said basically he would come back if they allowed him to do like a straightforward adaptation of The Dark Knight Returns.
Yeah.
Like, obviously, there's a lot of Dark Knight Returns like iconography in Batman v Superman, and that very clearly inspired his take on Batman.
Yeah.
But he said at some point during some interview like that he would that I don't think I think he said he'd only come back. I'm not positive, but he definitely said he would come back if they let him do that specific story as a
Yeah.
feature film. And it's like I could see that. Like I could see that being the thing that lures him out. But like again, that assumes that like Warner Brothers wants it, like both wants him and wants a Dark Knight movie.
Yeah.
Um and so like and also like probably there's an element of like not wanting to step on Christopher Nolan's toes because the hilarity is that even though The Dark Knight Returns is the thing that inspired his movies to be called The Dark Knight, The Dark Knight Rises. Like I
Yeah.
do feel like if you put a movie in theaters with Dark Knight in the title now,
Yeah.
uh, Nolan would have a seizure. Um, and
It's
so
only
like,
released on IMAX in 3 theaters, and that's the only way you watch it, though. He might love it then.
yeah.
So make it as
But in
difficult as
any event,
possible.
like,
Yeah.
but yeah, like I I wouldn't say it's totally impossible that Snyder might do something down the line. I think that especially if Gunn has success and sticks around, ironically, all the Snyder people hate Gunn and they want this to fail. But like I think if Gunn is successful, it increases the odds of Snyder getting like an Elseworlds movie down the line because
Yeah.
Gunn and Snyder appear to have a decent relationship. Like they work
Yeah.
together on Dawn of the Dead. They take pictures and post them to social media sometimes and all that kind of stuff. And
Yeah.
it's like clearly like they vibe as people, which tracks. I mean, I think that like in spite of the fact that he's very kind of broy, and like you can look at like photos of Zack Snyder and be like, oh, he's that kind of guy. He doesn't strike me as that kind of guy when he actually talks. Like he
Yeah.
actually seems to be a really nice dude. Like all those filmmakers lined up, or not filmmakers, all those cast members lined up behind him, just the same way that all the cast members of Guardians lined up behind Gunn when he got canceled by Disney.
Yeah.
And so, like, to me, it's like it totally tracks that they vibe. It doesn't surprise me at all.
Yeah.
And I do think, like, if anybody ever wants to see Zack Snyder on a DC project again, the best chance is probably if
Yeah.
Gunn is successful enough that
Yeah.
in 5 years he can be like, what would be really cool is like having Zack do Red Sun or some shit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah,
Um,
I don't know. Yeah, it's always like, it's also like, I don't know if you're Zack Snyder, would you, I don't know. I just wouldn't want to do it. Like,
yeah,
because I'd
no,
be
me
like,
neither.
no, I've gone down that road. I've made my films. Like, I'm going to go work on, I mean, mind you, these last 2 films were complete and utter dis disasters,
I
but
mean,
also like, honestly, I think those 2 films showed, I don't even remember what the name of the Netflix
Rebel
movies,
Moons.
Rebel Moon. It shows to some level where it's just like, it definitely felt like Netflix said, no, we're going to give you the X numbers of dollars and you go do off whatever you want. Not going to intervene in any way. And it shows like, no, sometimes I have this theory that I've kind of talked about here, where it's just like a lot of like auteurs, I don't not necessarily consider it like singular like directors that have visions and whatever. Like I
Yeah,
don't want to put him with Spielberg and whatever else, but but it's just like there's an arc to a lot of their careers where like to me And I'm a person who doesn't like The Departed, where it's just like The
Right.
Departed is one of Scorsese's worst films. Because I think it was the film that was just like the studio, whoever. No, 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 actually, no. I'm sorry, it's not The Departed. It's the Netflix film that he did, The
Irishman?
Irishman, where it's just like I think that's genuinely his worst film because the studio Netflix was like, we want to get fucking Scorsese to do a streaming film for fuck's sake.
Yeah.
Money, throw it at him, and just like don't
Yeah.
look anyway. And then it's just like, oh no, we're gonna have 80-year-old De Niro pretending to be like a badly, pretending to be
Yeah.
a 30-year-old or whatever he was, and beat the
Yeah.
living
Yeah.
crap out of somebody on our screen. And it's just like, and it's going to look like an 80-year-old beating the crap out of somebody. I do believe that De
Yeah.
Niro could beat the living shit out of somebody in his 30s, but um, and I would actually pay to see it. But but it is one of those. I think that like there's an arc where it's just like they get, and it's just like, no, you can't do it. You can't do it anymore.
Yeah.
I think Terry Gilliam almost has that same arc as well, where there's like his last couple of films have been I've enjoyed them to some level as a Terry Gilliam fan, but like as like I can look at them and go, Terrence Malick also is like is that where it's just
Yeah.
like Tree of Life was like, are you fucking I love Tree of Life. I love that fucking film. I saw it I own it and I've seen it in theaters. I don't watch it that often, maybe once every couple years. But yeah, it's kind of a
No, no,
thing. Yeah,
I know what you mean. It's like this idea that like it's kind of like how in the late 90s, early 2000s, they needed content for the home video market. And so they started making all these unrated cuts and director's cuts and stuff.
mhm,
And in a lot of cases, like people think director's cut, think of like Brazil and Blade Runner and these things where the director's cut is a really different animal and often very improved from the theatrical cut.
yeah,
Um, but I think that like oftentimes the stuff that came out, 15, 20 years ago as a director's cut or as an unrated cut didn't need to be and was not improved
yeah,
for it.
yeah,
And like I don't think the unrated version of Dodgeball
yeah,
is demonstrably like and not even
yeah,
in like not even to say like the Dodgeball is or should be Brazil, but like I like it's not the kind of it's like I don't get the impression that that director really
yeah,
strongly believed in some of those cut scenes. I feel like the scenes got cut, and at some point somebody was like, "Was there anything that you like cut for time
yeah,
late that still is kind of funny in a
yeah,
vacuum, and we
yeah,
could stick it on the DVD?" And they were like, "Oh yeah, sure." Like, but like oftentimes what ends up happening with that is that like you put those scenes back in because you're
mhm,
like, well, they were really only cut for time. But a lot of the time when you say cut for time, what you really mean is cut for pacing.
yeah,
And so you end up with like a comedy that's 8 minutes longer. And that doesn't seem like much, but like when it's 8 minutes that throws off the flow and it's 8 minutes, six of which are without
yeah,
laughs in a comedy
yeah,
movie that's supposed to be 90 minutes long, it's like, oh no,
yeah,
this is a demonstrably worse movie now because you had like complete control and like
mhm,
and so like and again like these are not totally analogous to like the Scorsese example, but I do think like there's something there in the fact that um cutting a movie for the theatrical experience
mhm,
um on some level is making cuts that whether you personally believe in them or not, you
yeah,
know is going to make it more broadly appealing to people, more enjoyable, more whatever. And
yeah,
it's like if you are somebody who has like a really strong like you strongly believe that like well this scene deserved to be in there and it got cut for the studio, it's one thing. But like oftentimes just like having no oversight to say that you had no oversight
yeah.
isn't isn't great. And I
And
do
that,
think like that's
and
sorry.
that's fine if you're like for Kevin Smith, where it's like I don't believe that like Lionsgate or whoever is like distributing his film really has much oversight on the finished
Yeah.
product, but he is making a product for his fans, and that's kind of
Yeah.
it. Obviously, dog, there's films out
Yeah.
there that he's doing that he's just like trying to reach out to different, but he's also just kind of exploring, but he's also making, you know, films that are less than $25 million, which like
Yeah.
he's making films in the way that Troma makes films, not, very
Yeah.
different comparison, but they're like, oh, we can spend $150,000 on this film because we know that we will make $150,000 on this film. And
Yeah.
that is the production thing. And it's just like, otherwise you get, terrible thing. I mean, I think the one, the one thing that always is the best example of the director isn't always right is Payback. The director's
Yeah.
cut of Payback is just a not good film. Um,
No.
and it seems to, I don't know if it's a universal, but like I've never seen really anybody who's seen the original and then seen the director's cut isn't like, oh,
Yeah.
there was a vision there that was missed. It was just like, this
Yeah.
doesn't,
Yeah.
and it's weird because like thinking about going back to watching Payback when I accidentally watched the direct.
Yeah.
I mean, it was like you always think it's the director's cut. It's going to be at least slightly better or better in a different
Right.
way. I love both versions. I love both versions of Brazil. I think both
Yeah. Mhm.
versions are great. Um, and which I think is saying something more about the how excellent the film is over, you know,
Right.
Terry Gilm's decisions versus the studio's decisions to make it happier or whatever. Um,
Right.
but it's sometimes, yeah, sometimes you just get a film like Payback, which like again, anybody who's like highly recommend. I know it's a Mel Gibson film. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
But it was before we knew, so is it okay? I don't know. I just shut
Yeah.
up. I'm saying shut up to myself.
I mean,
Um,
honestly, to the theatrical cut, which is the one that is much more worth watching.
and also harder to
Um,
find, which is the most irritating thing, which is
well,
was
that's
my
what I was
point. It
gonna
was
say.
just like, but yeah,
They don't sell it digitally. They don't sell it.
yeah,
It's not available new. If you want
yeah,
the original version of that movie, you gotta like go on eBay and get a
yeah,
used copy.
yeah,
So Mel Gibson's not getting paid for it at least.
yeah.
Like
Fair.
if you can't watch him, like if you just can't stomach it, I don't
Yeah,
blame you. But
yeah,
like if your moral stance is like that I don't want him benefiting from this,
yeah,
then like go pick up a secondhand copy because like it's gonna be less than $10 and like he's not gonna get anything from it anyway because it's
yeah, yeah.
not commercially available as as a
Yeah.
new
And
disc.
the only commercially available one is the director's cut, that the one that's almost always for
Yeah.
free on streaming on Amazon, which is always tempting for me because it's a film that I really like and it's one of my like I can kind of watch it anytime. Uh
Yeah.
but it's it's just bad. Yeah. It's just like, oh, the director's cut, fucking goddamn it. Anyway, which is a rare thing to say.
Yeah.
Anyway,
But
but
yeah, but in any event, the point being, I agree with you that like sometimes people given absolute free reign is not a great idea.
yeah.
I think with Snyder in particular, like I like a lot of what Snyder does. And like I said, he strikes me as a decent dude, but like I do
Mhm.
think this is a guy who has demonstrated he doesn't have a great sense of story structure. Like this is a
Yeah.
guy who has time and time again demonstrated he needs a strong editor. What I really wish is I wish he would find a really strong editor
Yeah.
who he vibed with
Mhm.
and like the two of them could work on making movies that are truer to Snyder's vision
Yeah.
while making judicious cuts that help the pacing and help the,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Because like
But
to me,
yeah.
like that's such a consistent, like it's just such a consistent problem. Like he has storytelling problems. I think visually his movies are super striking. I think he draws great performances out of people. I think there's a really good movie buried in almost every Zack Snyder movie, whether or not the final cut is
Yeah.
good. Um,
It's some I'm pretty sure I probably said something similar when ages ago when we were talking about Justice League being revamped, coming out and everything. And
yeah,
is that I do sometimes I wish what we could get, like now that everything's for the most part everything's digital and everyone's shooting digital
yeah,
and there's just like a couple hard drives sitting in a warehouse somewhere that like has
yeah,
everything, that we could get like, oh, can we get like the guy that edits, for Scorsese or something to take a look at all of the files from Justice
yeah,
League and get like that film, because like I've never actually watched it because one of my favorite stories of like, underground editing
yeah,
and like kind of like subversive Hollywood kind of stuff, not subversive in like a sexual way
yeah.
but subversive, is oh my God, what's his name from
Topher
uh
Grace or
yeah, Topher Grace. You knew exactly what I was talking. His
I
Star
knew
Wars thing,
exactly.
how he learned how to do it, and it's just
Yeah,
like that sounds like so much better. Where it's just like
yeah,
again, you have this problem of like George Lucas. No one could say no to him because they
yeah,
had a pretty good idea that it was just going to print money whatever he produced,
yeah.
and it did. And so
Well, and
whoever,
he owned the
whoever, yeah,
production house. Like
yeah,
he owned the production house. He owned the IP at that
mhm,
time, and it's like there's
yeah,
literally no way to say no
yeah,
to him. Like
yeah, yeah.
all you can do is say,
That
"I'm
literally
not stripping
the
this."
theaters would say, no, we do not want to make $1 billion. We do
Yeah,
not want that. And then he would probably just buy a couple theaters and release it on video or something like that.
yeah,
But it's it's I wish that that would be a thing that we could do, because like I think there are a lot of like great directors out there where it's just like, man, like I love Terrence Malick. Like, man, I what I would actually like to see is maybe a Terrence Malick under 2 hours and film. And I think that he could become, because like again, he brings out performances, his directing and his cinematographers are unfucking believable.
yeah,
And his influence on film is, you see it everywhere.
yeah,
Um but dear God, it's a hard entry. It's a hard entry.
yeah,
Like I think that Badlands is often like the only film that a lot of people see because they start going, I can't do Thin Red Line. I think Thin Red Line is one of the best films ever made, ever on screen. And I only can watch like I haven't watched that film in a long time because it's
yeah.
like it is
I remember
it's
having
not
conversations
tiring,
with
but it's
people.
a it's like
Yeah.
I don't have 3 hours. I mean, I do. I
Well,
totally do. I definitely watch 3 hours of Law and Order, in a row. But it's like it's
but I
funny.
remember having those conversations with people at Emerald City too. Like I
Yeah.
remember people coming in and like having the conversation about how like, Thin Red Line came out at the same time as Saving Private Ryan,
Yeah.
and I prefer Thin Red Line. Like there's a lot of similarities in terms of it's like this epic war story that like has like, this stacked cast, like really stellar actors and blah 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 blah. But it's
Mhm.
like, in spite of the fact that I think Thin Red Line is a better film overall, it's a
Yeah.
much harder sell to people
Yeah.
because like the pacing and the like whatever, like it feels much longer than Saving Private Ryan.
Yeah.
Like
It's
there's
it's
never
it's
gonna
more of an
be a
experience than it is
scene
a
in a
film.
Malick movie.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. There's never gonna be a scene in a Malick movie that is as kinetic as any really strong scene in a
Yeah.
in a Spielberg movie.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
and like kinetic is not inherently better. Like obviously, like you can get things like Koyaanisqatsi where it's just like it's basically just fucking a travelogue, and like you just sit there
Mhm.
looking at pretty things, and you're
Yeah.
like, no, that's a fucking amazing movie.
Yeah.
Um, but like, uh, for the average moviegoer who like wants to like eat popcorn and be entertained,
Mhm.
it Malik is a rough sit. Like,
Yeah, I
and
mean it is like, I mean, I've been having this problem where it's just like, if I don't have the money, and also like movie going experience is not always fun.
yeah,
In Syracuse it's not fun because there's only one, and and it's not, the theaters haven't been updated, and the one here kind of have the same problem in Norfolk. Um and also just like it's stupid amount of money, so you do have to make that. I have been making that decision where I'm like, no, like I am going to go see, I saw Sinners obviously in theaters because it's a theater film and it's like whatever, but it's just like there's a lot of films that I'm like, man, I feel like shit not seeing this in theater, because like this is a film that's like for me, but
yeah,
I don't want to spend $40 to go see a movie when I know in 3 weeks it's going to be on digital, and I can just buy it for
yeah,
25 and own it, or at least
yeah,
own it on digital,
yeah,
and so it's just like it sucks because it's like that's not how movies get sold, now, is that the after sales don't really factor in usually into getting
yeah.
a film again,
Yeah,
but
and
like
that's really that's and what's crazy is that the like the evaporation of the home video market hasn't
yeah.
really changed. Like they still get millions and millions of dollars off of the post theatrical market. Like they
Mhm.
get huge licensing fees, especially if you go to someplace like Netflix.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know because these are not numbers that they release, but it
Yeah.
would not surprise me at all if Madam Web like got more money
Yeah.
from Netflix than it got in theaters, because like not only like is there a certain amount of status for Netflix involved with getting like a big franchise movie,
Yeah.
like even if it's not a movie that did great at theaters, like it had a bunch of buzz, it's got names
Yeah.
people recognize, and but also like then it did really well in its first few weeks.
Mhm.
um And it's funny because I remember there was somebody did a thing that was like Madam Web was streamed more times in its first 3 weeks on Netflix than I can't remember what there was some Marvel movie on Disney
Yeah.
Plus.
No, I
And
feel
I was
like I've
just
seen the
like,
story. I thought, yeah,
and my whole thought was like, I don't think this is a reflection of public interest. I think this is a reflection of how much bigger Netflix is
yeah.
than than Disney Plus in terms of like
Mhm.
absolute numbers. I think that like Marvel movies are broadly appealing and people will check them out if they've got nothing better to do and it's
Yeah.
free. And
Yeah.
so like your total streaming hours is going to be based more on like how many people see the thing pop up in front of them,
Yeah.
less than more so than the actual like interest in the movie itself.
I'm very curious on if there has been any films that have been like greenlit, like a sequel or something. I haven't heard any stories. I feel like I was just seeing a story about like basically The Accountant 2 happened because and this is, obviously it's Ben Affleck
Yeah.
talking on the red carpet saying the fans kind of
Right. Yeah.
demanded it because I mean it is a film that it doesn't need a it's like it
Yeah.
definitely sets it up where it's just like, oh, it could, yeah, there's definitely a sequel, but like if that's the only film that ever happens, it's a solid, piece.
Yeah.
It's rewatchable and like it's definitely a film I watch like probably
Yeah.
every other month because it's that kind of perfect amount of it doesn't make me feel too stupid that I'm watching this
Yeah.
terrible action film for the, whatever, because there's some version of like, oh no, it's a better film than that when it's
Yeah.
really not. It's really genuinely not. But I was just, because it's like, when Morbius hit, and I think that like we also have to deal with the ironic watching, which I
Yeah.
feel like a little bit of like Madam Web, was just like it's
Yeah.
so bad that you got to watch it. Morbius was that same thing. It's Morbin
Yeah.
time became like a fucking thing, and
Yeah.
like it was I don't know what after when it was released or what the timing was, but like when it hit Netflix, it was number one on Netflix for like quite a
Yeah.
while. And
Yeah.
I don't think that was because, oh, I wanted to see it in theaters. It was a kind of almost oh man, I get to watch this video of a train wreck, maybe. I don't know,
Yeah.
like what
Certainly, I
is
think that's
everyone
part of
talking
it.
about?
That's
Yeah,
definitely part of it, I think. And like I said, I do think also like some of it is just like it's a lot of people who aren't super online, all
yeah,
they know is like, oh, wasn't that a Spider-Man movie? Like, I'll give it a
yeah,
look. Why not?
yeah,
Like, you know what I mean? Again, like I think that like Marvel tentpole movies are broadly appealing and people if they don't have to outlet to lay out any money for it,
yeah,
will give it a shot. I mean, I think that's the big lesson that you take away from the huge success of Morbius on streaming because like when Sony brought it back to theaters to try to like milk the memes,
yeah,
it did nothing. It made like
yeah.
75 grand and just was a huge embarrassment for them.
Hmm.
Uh, but like then it came to Netflix not too long after that, and a bunch of people saw it. And it
Yeah,
was like, yeah, a lot of that's probably ironic. Oh, some of it's just like casuals who don't know anything about the thing. But like I think that like what it really boils down to is yeah, people will watch it whether ironically or not, but not if you're asking them to pay $21 to go see it in
yeah,
a theater.
yeah,
Like
yeah,
nobody wants to pay $21 for a movie they've heard is terrible. But
yeah,
like if it looks okay, they'll pop it on for free and turn it off after half an hour.
yeah,
And like since Netflix basically judges everything based more on like total watch time than anything else. It's like, if a million people get halfway through the movie, then that's half a million people watching the movie as far as Netflix is concerned.
yeah,
And
yeah,
so uh I think that's part of the.
yeah. I just wish that like I mean, maybe it's out there, but like I've never seen like it's a continual harp that we talked about. We've played. I don't know what the metaphor was going for there, or
Yeah,
analogy. But like the idea was just like I just wish there was some idea of like because it there's so many films that have these second lives on streaming, but like on like the home rental market where it's just like and obviously, there's people rented Clerks or people rented Chasing, Mallrats was the one I was looking for in my
yeah,
brain. And people rented Mallrats because and they paid for it. And
yeah,
and so like understandably, like the studios can go, oh shit, Kevin Smith does have a fan base. It's just maybe it's not it wasn't the theatrical release fan base or something like, whatever the thought process is there. But
Yeah.
like on streaming, where it's just like I don't see anything. Um, I mean, I guess I don't know. I don't remember what the numbers. I mean, The Accountant one did pretty well in box office. I think it did decent
Yeah, I don't
numbers.
remember the
Like it
exact
certainly didn't
numbers,
lose
but
money, but
yeah, and it also had like it had a fairly reasonable budget. I want to say that
yeah,
it like cost 100 and made 225 or something like that.
yeah. I mean, I think there's probably also it doesn't hurt that like, um, oh my God, what's his name? Jesus Christ, the Punisher. His, that like
Bernthal.
a lot of yeah. The actors in it are like, are bigger stars than they were when the first
Yeah,
one came out. So I mean, like it certainly doesn't hurt. Let's
yeah.
see.
It
Yeah,
made
worldwide it made 100 budget had a budget of 44 million and
yeah,
worldwide release was 155, which
yeah.
um, I guess is a bomb if you're gonna get
I mean, again, the funny thing is that like when you talk to people, they'll still say that like 2X is a respectable performance. 2X is
yeah.
not a bomb. That doesn't hold up when you get into like the mega budget movies. Like
Mhm.
mega budget, like when you spend more than 200 million on something, it seems like they just want it to be a $1 billion
Yeah.
movie,
Yeah.
or it's considered a flop.
Well,
I
I
think
mean, we
that like
still like when Batman versus Superman came out and only made $850 million on a
yeah,
like even if it was 250 budget, it was just like it's still minimum it made $200 million. Are you fucking kidding me? Like if that's not enough money for you, then go, I don't know what. Go fuck yourself. Like
yeah. Well, and also like a movie like that is guaranteed to have even now with
yeah.
like such a small DVD market, it's guaranteed to have a home video shelf life
Yeah.
because it's a fucking Batman Superman movie, and people
Yeah.
will just until the format dies, they'll buy it, and then they'll buy it on digital. Um,
And then they'll buy
and
it in 4K and they'll buy it in
yeah,
8K and they'll buy it in whatever. Yeah.
so like, yeah, and I mean, like, I think part of that is, and this can kind of tie into the conversation that we want to have,
Yeah.
um, but I think part of that is like studio expectations are always such a big variable. Like, I think that like Batman v Superman did fine. It didn't do the kind of money that Marvel movies were doing, and because it was Batman and Superman, um, Warner Brothers expected that it would do like Avengers money.
Yeah.
And so like I think that's where the big disconnect was, is like the expectation of the studio, and to a lesser extent the expectation of like the trades and the audience and all these people who were used to seeing all these box office stories where line go up, make
Yeah.
brain happy, you know.
Mhm.
And so like I think part of it is just and I'm hoping that that disconnect is less on James Gunn's Superman. Like for instance, I feel like you watch the trailer and you're like, okay, so this is clearly a fairly thinly coated like analogy for Gaza.
Yeah.
Like knowing then that there will be a certain amount of people who protest the movie.
Mhm.
Um, you've got to assume like, okay, no, you're not planning on making $1 billion, right? Because like it'll probably be banned in Israel.
Yeah.
Um, and so uh like I'm hoping that like there's an element of like, no, we understand what we're getting into with this movie, and we know that like as long as it makes, you know, whatever,
Yeah.
I'm hoping that the floor is more realistic. Because again, I think a big part of the problem with so many of these projects is not what they're making, but what the
Mhm.
expectation is that they're supposed to make. Like I
Yeah.
feel like Marvel movies especially got to the point where they were making $1 billion every time, or
Yeah.
almost every time.
Yeah.
Like the second Guardians movie, which had like a lot less enthusiasm around it than the first one or the third one did, still made like $925 million.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I
And,
still can't believe how much like Ant-Man made
yeah,
whatever. I think it made like 600, 700, and it was just like,
yeah,
the Ant-Man? Like,
yeah,
and Paul Rudd is the lead. Like, it's just like, and Paul
yeah,
Rudd, I mean, it's like, yeah, as a person who's been a Paul Rudd fan for, 20 years or whatever before,
yeah,
it's just like, it's always hilarious. It's still funny to see the idea that he has like the box office
yeah,
that big. But like I think the lead in that we were kind of talking about is like the last episode that we talked about again, fucking like we're talking about not how much we hate people talking about budget, where this is all we're doing.
Yeah.
But uh, the last thing we talked about was Sinners' expectations and kind of like what, there was already kind of
Mhm.
like talk about, whether how much money you need to make or whatever. And,
Yeah.
obviously, if you're listening to this, you probably have a decent idea that done pretty goddamn well.
Yeah.
Let's see, this is a slashfilm.com article, uh, $284 million. And let's see, it was like, I mean, it's still doing like it's coming in second. It beat out The Accountant 2, which is pretty fucking wild to me. Like it beat out like a Ben Affleck, like it
Yeah.
beat out like a film that like specifically timed to probably do really well, and
Yeah.
I don't know. I haven't looked at the numbers or whatever for that, but like the fact that it's become the biggest box office of a what's the I think like of a
Like
original
of a
IP,
non-franchise
yeah,
or an original
yeah,
IP. Yeah.
thing since Coco, which I still don't think we briefly mentioned this in the last episode, but it's
Yeah.
like I don't think that should count. I mean, like it's a
No.
Pixar film. Like that's the
Yeah.
like it to me, that's kind of like a Marvel film where it's just like you're
Yeah.
introducing Ant-Man. And it's just like, yeah, 99.9% of people have no fucking clue who Ant-Man is. They're going to see it because it's a Marvel film.
Right.
I'm going to watch Coco because it's a Disney film. If it just came out,
Right.
I probably wouldn't, I don't think I actually saw it in theaters, but I wish I did, because it's fantastic, and even
Great.
thinking about it makes me.
There's a sequel coming out, which I don't know how that's going to work, but that's a whole other
Yeah, I
conversation.
don't. Yeah, just some original things, Disney, please. But it's fantastic to see this do so well because it's like the I love when the Variety headline. I don't think that we would have touched on this because I think Sinners Amass, this is the Variety headline that got basically like owned the internet for like 2 weeks of
Yeah.
like, go fuck yourself, Variety. This poor social media
Yeah.
person whoever wrote this or whatever the article was, a Sinners has amassed $61 million in its global debut. It's a great result for an original R-rated film. Yet, the Warner Brothers release has a $90 million price tag and global marketing expenses, so profitability remains a ways away. And it's just like, and
Right.
I think that there's Hollywood budgeting is this has always been a big
Yeah.
thing I rant about. Hollywood budgeting is, we know it's ridiculous. Men in Black
Yeah.
supposedly never made any money.
Right.
But like
Exactly.
I think that the one that we don't talk about enough is the marketing budgets of like, oh, Batman versus Superman spent, supposedly $200 million in marketing. I don't fucking believe it for a fucking heartbeat. Show me the goddamn receipts. Because I'm like, I see it everywhere, but most of the things that I see are either like on Pepsi cans, which is not a they're not spending fucking money on that. And
Yeah.
it's literally probably they're
It's like
making money on
in-kind
it, if anything.
marketing. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
if it's a at best it's a break even, and then everything else is basically web release, especially now where it's like web release ads that don't cost a
Yeah.
fucking any money to put it on YouTube, and that like IGN, all the comic book.com, all these people are promoting it, and that
Yeah.
like I've seen a ton of ads for it in a way that like, but
Right.
I only watch streaming, so I know that it's targeted to me in a way
Yeah.
that like very particular. And then I saw it maybe, I saw like a couple trailers in theaters, which I know that I'm sure that costs money, but not that much money. Um,
Yeah.
and so it's just like, where are these like $30 million budgets? And most of the time it's money that's going into each other's, it's like
Well, and
this.
that's we've talked about this before that like it's it's not that you spend the equivalent of your budget marketing every
Mhm.
single movie, which is
Yeah,
how it's presented by the studios.
yeah,
It's that um movies where there is no marketing budget because it's a smaller movie
yeah,
um get folded into like Batman v Superman because you're taking for granted that like there's money there.
yeah.
And so it's like the studio, like, yes, the studio spends a shitload of money promoting big tentpole blockbusters. But yeah, I don't think in real dollars they're spending the budget of the movie all over again.
Yeah.
I think what
I
it
mean, and if
is
they
that they're
are,
just,
then like, what the fuck is going on? I mean, because it's
yeah,
like, we have some vague idea from like working at comicbook.com, working other places, that
yeah,
like how much money it is to like advertise on these sites. It's on the scale of like when we're talking about budgets, it's like
Yeah,
to advertise on the number one entertainment. I'm maybe getting a full page ad. Actually, you know what? Even that, like, I know how much it is to buy ads in magazines. It's
yeah,
a shockingly low number. Like, yes,
yeah,
could I afford it? No. But like having worked on like book releases and things like that to get like magazine ads and placements and
yeah,
things like that, it's like I'm really surprised at how cheap this is. Or even get
yeah,
TV ads right now thanks to streaming and targeting. It's incredibly cheap. If anywhere the money is going to, it's like going to the marketing firms that exactly that you said, like where it's just like,
yeah,
no, all of these are fucking deals. Like there isn't just like one
yeah,
marketing firm that is just putting their head down and doing this. Like as somebody who we hired for Vigilantes, we through one of our producers, we hired a big marketing firm worked on it. The guy that was working on our film was working on like seven other films.
right,
And they did a really fucking fantastic job for Vigilantes,
right,
but like it was they were working on other films and they were getting paid. So it's like that much. I don't know.
yeah,
It's paid through our producer, like through our producers or whatever. It was like a deal that, you were, oh, can you add some time for this or whatever.
yeah,
And so it to me, it's like fucking ridiculous. I did love because Ben Stiller commented on this Variety article and said, in what universe does a $60 million opening for an original studio movie warrant this headline? Which
yeah,
like I do feel as though that like the Variety, like all of these sites now, which it sucks because it used to just be, say, a site like I'm trying to think of the kind of more shittier, um, the shittier comic book that hasn't really done. I don't remember them ever
the
really doing it, but
stereotype would
like,
be like Ain't It Cool News 20 years ago. Yeah.
yeah, but like the poking, like we're gonna do a headline to get you to click
Oh
on it
yeah,
angrily and kind of piss you off, and like the entertainment sites have always done the
yeah,
clickbait headlines, and then the story is like, oh, it's just a story. Oh, okay, the social media person's just like being an asshole to be not to
yeah.
take it on this poor employee or whatever, but it is
Let me tell you, by the
fantastic.
way, this is only marginally related, but I needed to share this because it's
Yeah,
fucking insane. There was a headline this morning, I don't remember where, and it was from a fairly straight, I want to say it was like a USA Today or something, but
yeah.
it was like Arizona Diamondbacks manager turns the tables on umpires after being ejected from the game. And
Yeah.
like that's a provocative headline in part because you're like, what the fuck does that even mean?
How does yeah
Like obviously, like theoretically, I guess he could have like gone on the internet and trashed them, but like, you know, one of the Yankees
it
did
doesn't
that last
yeah
week, and all it did was get him suspended and fined.
yeah
Um, and you click on this story, and the story is literally just like this guy was throwing a temper tantrum, he gets ejected from the game, and then before he leaves the field, he makes the ejection hand gesture at the umpires, like he's pretending
got
to
him.
throw them out. It's
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. And it's like, the fuck is this headline? Like,
I mean, mind you, we have both you like written 350 words about the most
oh yeah,
minute fucking thing, an image or whatever. But
oh
it
yeah,
is hilarious to think that like somebody was like, we're fucking writing a full fucking article about
yeah,
this thing that like should just be a YouTube short. Like John Boy Sports should make fun of it
yeah,
for like literally 45 seconds and that's all it would do. But it's
yeah.
yeah.
Well, I mean, that's the thing is like when I was, because Callie was actually the one who saw it this morning. I was like, what does this mean? And I was like, I don't know. So I clicked on the article, and
Yeah.
then I was just like, this is just a like a 400 word story that was written to drive traffic,
Yeah.
and then they had to attach a clickbait headline to it because after writing it, they were like, oh, this was only really funny if you were watching it live.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, yeah, yeah. It's like, did he come out in like a referee shirt and like made fun
yeah,
of him? Like that would have been like, but that's still not turning the tape anyway.
yeah.
Um, yeah, it is fucking funny. I feel like I had a lot more. Oh,
Well, the Sinners thing
yeah,
is like it's emblematic of like, and again, like there's a lot of pieces to it. Like first of all, is there's just a narrative of failure in Hollywood right now, and so
yeah,
like I feel like there's a lot of these headlines that are couched much more negatively than they would have been
yeah,
5 years ago. Um, but the other thing is that like that movie, a lot of people feel like oh, Sinners is being held to a higher standard or a different standard because it's a black movie,
yeah,
and like Hollywood, in spite of things like Creed and Black Panther, both of which
mhm,
also were directed by this guy,
yeah,
which were enormous hits and got Oscar nominations and all kinds of stuff. In spite of stuff like that, Hollywood still continues to talk about films by black leads or black filmmakers starring black leads as if it's a niche market.
Yeah.
Like, they talk about black films as if all of them are The Wood and it's
Yeah.
made for $10 million, and if it makes 50, you're okay.
Yeah.
Um, and so like because this movie had a higher than expected budget for that sort of film, people talked about like, oh my God, it's so expensive. But it's like, would you say that really about like because Ryan Coogler like made two movies in a row that were enormous blockbusters that got Academy Award nominations
Mhm.
that were like in the case of Black Panther was a cultural phenomenon. It was the only thing
Yeah.
people talked about for 6 weeks.
Yeah.
And like pick any white filmmaker that had a similar level of success, and would you shit on the fact that his next movie was made for $100 million?
So
Like,
so I take it even a step further with it. This is like one of the biggest things why I'm like I'm so happy that films like this
yeah,
doing well is because I mean, so number one, it's not just a vampire film. It's a very I mean, there's spoilers I'm not going to get into because I still want you to see the goddamn film. Like I know you, but
yeah. Disclaimer: I haven't seen the movie because I
yeah.
never get out of my house.
So I mean, like obviously the time period it's in the 20s in the South,
Yeah,
or is they're kind of vague about deals with the Klan,
I feel
and
like
things like that. And so
isn't it Louisiana? I feel like part of the original pitch was that it was like Creole.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And so it's it's like got all of these things because it's not just like a black vampire film, which like
Right.
okay, like that's one thing, but it's like and it shows you can watch the film and you can see a lot. You can watch the trailer, I mean, and you can see like a lot of that. It's not like one of these
Yeah,
films where it's like it's promoted as like oh it's just an action film. You'd be like oh my God, it's dealing with the Holocaust or something. I don't know what it's
yeah,
dealing with something something really deep. Which like no. Also, I mean like if it's Coogler, I think that anybody has some
yeah,
big idea, but it's you spend my God, I'm trying to think of like how much screen time, like maybe like 10 minutes of screen time with anyone white at
mm,
all. And the one white person that you are spending time with for the most part is also you find out that she's this is a minor spoiler people not really but she's presenting white presenting she has I forget what her heritage but basically she's
right,
that mix which again is this a social like the fact that
right.
she has been able to be white because she
Yeah,
has the
that she
skin color even though
has
she is black if they they
yeah,
look at her who her father is I forget what how
DNA.
far
Yeah,
back it was that it was and there's also these great cultural representations in it that like about
yeah,
being mixed race and whatever but it's that doesn't work the other way around. You never hear a single thing about an all white cast.
yeah,
I mean, it's like it's like where you have one actor. It's like Iron Man. Like you look at
yeah,
Iron Man and you look at Black Panther. Like both, I'm sorry, like Iron Man when it first came out was not now it's everybody knows who Iron Man is. Like everybody. It's not
yeah,
Superman, it's not Batman. Iron Man might as well have been Ant-Man or something like that, where it's just like I have a vague I know that that's a superhero, but like I don't know a goddamn thing about it. Like I might be able to recognize him,
yeah.
like the
You
suit
can
or whatever.
intuit that he's probably got a suit of armor because like his name's
Yeah,
Iron
yeah,
Man.
he's Iron Man. Yeah.
But
And it's like, and Robert Downey Jr. was not, whatever. But it's just like, and it had basically, that movie had basically one black person in the entire film.
yeah,
And he wasn't in it a crazy amount. But like, we don't hear about that. But like for black films, we hear about that. And that even me calling it a black film, was just like, it's a movie. It's a great
yeah,
movie. I mean, I think that I'd be interested to see what Coogler would have to like how he would define it. Because it's been
right.
really fascinating watching his kind of like what his influences are and like for this film. And I haven't heard of like one of them was like he was like one of his favorite vampire films is Lost Boys and so like it's very interesting to see that. But it's so much we just never get like the only when you talk about like I feel like we've talked about this recently about like Friend you look at going back through all of the big TV shows and big movies of like the late
Yeah,
90s early 2000s just it's all white it's all And it's like they're black, and obviously there was a lot of black people watching. There were people of color like watching those shows and loving those shows. But the other way
Mhm.
around, we don't really have that. Like there's, I can't, and so it's like it ends up being, I mean, like it's putting it on black people when it really should be being put on white people. That's like, why aren't we seeing this? Like there is, I mean, like you have certain films, which I'm showing my thing. You mentioned The Wood, but I'm trying to think of, oh my God, he has a massive studio in my brain is not doing the best
Oh, Tyler
2 days.
Perry.
Yeah, Tyler Perry. Where it's just like I've watched Tyler Perry films. I don't get them. I know that they're wildly popular. Um,
Yeah.
but like I'm never gonna watch. It's just not something that like I don't think that you have any. There's probably maybe 5% of people, of white people that like watch these films. I don't know what the demos are, but I feel like
Right.
I because it's a cultural, to some level a cultural thing. But it's um I don't know where I was going with that. So, but it's wild that we don't
Well,
have we continue to have that
I think that
crossover, but we
mainstream
don't have it.
studio films, yeah,
Yeah,
I think mainstream studio films with a black cast are an
mhm,
entirely different beast than like Tyler Perry movies that are
yeah,
being made inexpensively and specifically to target
yeah,
like an almost exclusively black market.
yeah,
Like I think that like there is context. Like it's like religious films. Religious films can do incredibly well and still not break through into the mainstream conversation because
yeah,
like evangelicals are a very loud group, but they're still relatively speaking a small percentage of
yeah,
like the overall audience.
yeah,
And so like to me, but like there are mainstream films that do very well that deal with themes of spirituality and religion and things. Um, but those aren't like faith films. And then to
yeah,
me, it's the same thing with something like Sinners doesn't feel like a black film in the way
mhm,
that like a Tyler Perry movie or something like that does, where it's being like there are movies that are still made for a very niche audience, but those movies typically are done on the cheap and they like it's the Kevin Smith thing all over again. Like Kevin
mhm,
Smith makes movies for cheap for an audience that he knows, like,
yeah,
okay, I have this number of hundreds of thousands of fans, and they will cover the expense of this $5
mhm,
million movie. You
yeah.
know what I mean?
Yeah, I kind of feel like Spike Lee is a really, example of that too. Like he
Yeah.
occasionally makes a film that makes a decent amount of money, but I mean, like I feel like most of his film, I'd have to like look at what
Yeah.
what the gross was or whatever. But like I can't imagine Bamboozled made a stupid amount of money. That was a fantastic film, and I absolutely it's one of my favorite films. But like that was not a film for
Yeah.
everyone. And
And by design.
yeah, and just yeah, specifically. I mean, but a lot of his, but so it's I don't know. It'd be interesting, I mean, obviously we also a lot of people have made a big thing about his studio deal that he has, where it's
Mhm.
just like he actually owns the film after a number of
Yeah.
years, and
And this is we're
which
going back
is
to Coogler because
yeah, I'm sorry, Coogler, not
yeah.
Spike Lee or Kevin Smith, yeah. I assume they both probably have a similar deal as well. We just don't
Yeah.
talk about it because they're, but
Well, because
like
they're not
I
doing $100 million tent pole. And
yeah,
so
yeah. But I also,
yeah.
yeah, I also feel it's like but if you're Ryan Coogler, you get to make those deals. And it's like the fact that it's a big story. Like I do feel like it's a very interesting story. Like, and
Right.
I do wish people would talk to him more about it than in a way that's like, no, 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 no. It's not the fact that you're a black director or whatever. I'm just interested in this idea of like ownership when it comes to
Right.
like I imagine Scorsese probably has a deal like that. I imagine,
Mhm.
Nolan has some level of that deal. I imagine
Yeah.
there's like a handful of directors, but I can't imagine that like the people that are like the number of directors that are like pumping out the Marvel films or
Yeah.
that when they go to their next deal that they have something like that. And
I
that they're
think
kind of setting.
I think too that the thing that's the most interesting about Sinners and the reason that it's become a little bit more of a conversation is because um, it's being viewed as a franchise. Like
Yeah.
like if the rights revert to um, Oppenheimer, then there's a limited amount of like what that means for the studio
Yeah.
going forward.
Yeah.
Whereas with Sinners, if you're looking at it as like a Nightmare on Elm Street kind of franchise,
Yeah.
then the idea that like Coogler's going to always own a piece, and it's going to revert fully back to him, so he can shop it to some other studio when he has a when he doesn't want to work with Warner Brothers in 20 years.
Yeah.
Um, is interesting and it's meaningful because like it's being viewed as a piece of IP as much as a standalone film.
Yeah.
I do
Yeah.
think that's one thing that is interesting about it is that like um but again like even then it's not like it's unheard of in the modern marketplace, I guess, because everything is treated as IP and studios just want to own everything. Basically, they want everything to be work for hire.
Yeah.
But like George Lucas famously held on
Mhm.
to most of the rights for Star Wars. And like you can go back years and years, and it's like I think Kevin Smith owns all of his characters, but like certain trademarks, like
Yeah.
titles and stuff. He has to like I don't think he can do a Mallrats thing without involving Universal. I don't think he can do
Yeah.
Clerks without involving Paramount because they own the Miramax catalog now.
Mhm.
Um, which is why I think like his comics now are called like he's got a comic called Quick Stops, which
Yeah.
is just like an anthology that goes through the whole View Askew universe and like but like, so I do think like obviously there's something a little bit different about like owning the underlying IP and the trademarks and being able to shop it in its
Mhm.
entirety to another studio. But even that, like you're talking after 25 years, like I don't like the guy who wrote Friday the 13th recently terminated the copyright transfer. And like that kicked off a decade of lawsuits. But like now that it's over, he like owns his script
Yeah.
and there's a bunch of stuff that like Paramount can't use unless they hammer a deal out with him. And then there's
Mhm.
also like a bunch of stuff that he doesn't own because it was in a later movie based on like it's a derivative. And so
Yeah.
it's kind of a mess. But like it's also not unheard of to terminate the copyright transfer. Like it happens. That's why they're working on a prequel series for Jason that doesn't involve a hockey mask. Um, uh,
That
the
seems
well,
interesting. Yeah.
the studio owns the hockey mask because the hockey mask didn't actually come in until I think it's the third
Oh, it's the
movie.
other way around. Okay. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. Still kind of, I guess if you're doing a prequel thing, I guess it's like you can do, I'm trying to think of, I guess you could do a Peter Parker film before he gets bit by
yeah.
a
Well,
spider or
and I
something
think
like that, or whatever it gets.
the idea of Crystal Lake, and I think it's still happening. I had heard that it was canceled, but then I heard it was back on. But the idea of Crystal Lake is like kind of like Hannibal,
Mhm.
but for Jason's mom. So it's
Ah,
like
okay.
exploring her like losing her grip on reality,
Yeah.
leading up to the events of the first movie where she finally like, kills in her son's name for the first time.
Yeah.
Um, which again makes sense because like I think that there's two separate Hollywood or Friday the 13th property or
Mhm.
franchises that are in like joint not joint development but simultaneous development right now. And
Yeah.
it's like there's the Paramount one where Jason's a hockey mask wielding slasher and his mom's not involved, and
Yeah.
then there's the Crystal Lake one where it's like okay, well we own the version of Jason who wore a bag on his head and the idea that his mom was the original serial killer
Yeah. Yeah.
and like a bunch of backstory elements. Um, but so
See,
it's kind of a mess.
the funny thing is, it's like now, like you're saying, and I'm like, now all I'm picturing is that like doing an Iron Man movies, like TV show series, but
Mm.
it's before he becomes Iron Man, and it's like a TV show like Billions, where it's
Yeah.
him following being like the worst person in, doing corrupt deals and like whatever, and it's just like. Yeah, no, the problem is that people would love him for it, and because
Oh yeah.
people love Elon Musk,
Yeah.
and so I'm like, God damn it, that would be terrible.
Well, I mean, like Lord of War is a great example
Yeah.
where it's like I don't know if that sequel is still happening. They had
Mhm.
one in the works where
Yeah.
it was centered on his kid. But
Yeah.
like in any event, like Lord of War, terrific movie. But yet another one of those movies where people were like, Nick Cage was so cool in that. And it's like, that's not the takeaway, really. Like the takeaway was that he was performatively cool because it was manipulating dumb people. Like,
Yeah. This is something
Uh,
we at some point we need to talk about this. Is that like I was just like, oh, there's a trailer for it. And then I'm like, none of
no,
the YouTube channels that have the trailer look like places that I trust because we
yeah,
have this fake trailer epidemic, which suppose I keep hearing Google's cracking down on. And then every single time I check Google News, I would say two out of my Google News stories are the new trailer for Iron Man 4 or something like that. And
yeah,
it's very clearly an AI crap
yeah,
crap fest or whatever. But anyway, not get over around on that. There's this huge controversy. I don't know, huge in quotes, whatever.
yeah.
I'm gonna do clickbait on it in the middle of a 2 hour, 60 minutes into a podcast. That supposedly the 2010 Robin Hood was
Oh
on
yeah,
Amazon. It's Amazon streaming, and it removed a bunch of text on screen, and the text on screen was basically about like not dictators, but kings and and so I saw on Twitter and also like I was looking at some Amazon forums as well, and they're like, oh, it's censorship. They're doing it because it's too close to Donald Trump and Elon and not Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos is whatever, and I have no idea. I don't know why it disappeared. I can't find Amazon for some unknown reason. I can't see haven't answered this question, which it seems like the easiest thing in the world to be like, hey, and it was because of this, or
yeah,
whatever. The things that I've seen in the past, like I think it was Empire of the State had a bunch of text that's on screen that was removed, was because
right.
basically they move a lot of it to subtitles so that
Mhm.
it everything can be done for either
Closed captioning.
I guess closed captioning or hard of seeing. Basically
Yeah,
people with disabilities when to be able to see it and
right,
kind of mainstreaming it. I think it's a bad way of doing it. Like I think you can have
right.
both. You can have it on stream. I don't understand. There's also like other explanations that I've heard about it basically being like, well, it's for the Chinese market or it's for the different nationality markets, so we don't have to change it on screen, which I gotta assume that like
Right.
the Chinese release of which I can't imagine that there's a Chinese release of Empire of the State. But it doesn't have it, edited on screen or whatever. It doesn't have it
Yeah.
in Chinese characters. But the I went to go double check this because I obviously people have been thinking they've already moved it back. They've already put it back on screen. I
Yeah. The thing that I said to you, and I think
Yeah,
I kind of stand by this, is like I feel like it was probably whether it was done for accessibility or whether it was done for some other reason. I don't think that it was probably anything about censorship. My
yeah,
gut is that it was like an AI that was designed to scrape like Star Wars movies where there's people
yeah,
talking in alien languages, and so you end up with subtitles that get eaten by the other subtitles. And so,
yeah.
like, I don't know if you've had this experience, but sometimes, like, I like to watch movies with subtitles on because I have children, and everything's always loud.
Mhm.
And so, oftentimes there'll be somebody speaking in an alien language, and there'll be the little yellow subtitles, and then like the real subtitles are over the top of that, but they
Yeah,
don't tell you what the subtitle says. It just says
yeah,
speaking in alien language.
yeah.
Um,
I've
and
had
so
good.
it like
So,
the
uh,
it wouldn't surprise me if it's designed if it's like an AI algorithm that's designed to fix stuff like that. Like it's
yeah,
designed to like up on things that seem like they should be captions and put them into captions instead of overwriting them.
mhm,
And so like once people started freaking out, they addressed the problem because they're like, "Oh shit, we broke it."
yeah.
Um
And they don't. The
and
biggest thing is I
I
think
don't know
that
if sure that's true, but
yeah, I think that everybody has like for a lot of this stuff, a lot of this tech stuff that we have problems, conspiracy theories immediately kind of spawn out of it. Is that I think the biggest thing is that
yeah.
no, you're thinking that they care. They don't care. They don't care about the product that they're giving you because they're just throwing
Yeah.
slop at the screen and you'll eat it up because it's free. It's like everybody views,
Yeah.
kind of, oh, I can watch a million movies on Netflix
Right.
because it's free. Obviously, it's not, but it's not how it works. But that's I think what like a lot of this comes down to is that again, they just don't give a shit. They don't care about how the screen,
Right.
movies are coming on screen. Again, the fact that you can upload kind of any movie, it goes through very, you can upload, any public domain movie up to Amazon as you're under your own account. And once you get listed, and it's fine, and you can have all these different versions of,
Yeah.
not Dawn of the Dead, but what's the
Night of the
zombie
Living
film
Dead.
that's Night of the Living
Night of
Dead
the
is
Living.
like there's you search Night of the Living Dead, there's like 30 different versions of different
Yeah.
qualities up there because again, Amazon doesn't give a shit. It goes on a server,
Yeah.
and the only time they'll care is that they get a complaint. It is frustrating that they don't explain it because it would be nice to just know what the fuck is going on with it and like whatever. My biggest frustration with the subtitles and captions, the biggest thing I've been having problems with is that there's been a bunch of films where you have main character speaking. I think it was G20. I think I could be
Mhm.
very, which is amusing. It's still Amazon. But and that you had I forget what, I don't think it was a Chinese character, foreign language being spoken, and it
Mhm.
wasn't subtitled. It wasn't
Right.
subtitled, and I'm like, sometimes filmmakers do that, as in, oh, you're not supposed to know what's going on. But I was just
Right.
like, no, I feel like I'm very much supposed to know what they're saying. They're having a
Yeah.
conversation, and the other person is pretending that they know it. The person who's, and so I've seen that a lot in films, and like, it's like I don't
Yeah.
understand if it's because you have different captioning depending on whatever, and that's my biggest frustration
Right.
with that is that it's this maddening thing. um the final story that I had, which I'll link in the show notes, but we had there's I have to bring up the guy's name here. Of course, I have ads on everything. But there's a David Letterman made an appearance
Oh yeah.
in. I don't know if you had a chance to watch any of this clip, but it's a
No.
little. The link that I'll have in the description is actually just a local news story about it, and they have like a
Mhm.
lot. They had a bunch of access to it, and it's this local news guy or local news guy. This yeah, up in Maine
Like
in
a
Bangor.
yeah, like a local broadcast, like a public access kind of.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think it was like on an actual network, I mean, and so it's like they just had like a late night show, like a local late night show, like David Letterman would
Mhm.
have, but like local to Bangor,
Right.
Maine, for the last like 20 or so years, and he always looked up to David Letterman as which if you're in that he says that it's
Yeah.
the reason he got into the business, um, and yeah, it's Danny Cashman. And so David Letterman made an appearance. He had his last show. It was going to be a big thing. He's not quitting for any necessary reason. He's just like, it's time to
Right.
stop
Just
doing this.
yeah.
And he got David Letterman in full beard to show up, and it was a surprise guest. And it's like so. Link in the descriptions. It's definitely worth watching this news story because it's only like 4 minutes long, but it's just
Mhm.
an adorable kind of like, oh, this is like, I obviously have never seen the show, never heard of it before this, but it was just
Right.
like,
Yeah.
oh, I hate when you have like there's things that used to exist a lot. You have like the
Yeah.
local, sometimes they turn out to be Alex Jones, but sometimes they
Yeah.
just turn out to be like a relatively nice like local guy that does like local television, which
Yeah.
like we just don't have anymore. And that's like,
No.
another kind of like there's nothing, never mind like, I don't know around here, but I know in upstate New York, in central New York, you don't even you used to have 3, 5, and 9 used to be the TV
Yeah.
things, NBC, CBS, and ABC, and even the local
Mhm.
news combined, they do one show. It's the same. It's basically
Yeah.
this, you can switch back and forth, and it's very surreal because it's like
Yeah.
slightly different.
Yeah.
It's
Well,
kind of
Sinclair
yeah.
Broadcast now owns the CW and WSTM, and I think one
Mhm.
other network in Syracuse. So it's like, okay, he's the caster, like
Yeah.
a guy who does the news. Um,
So it's like
yeah, and it's
it's not
it's
quite yeah,
funny.
but
Like we were talking before this about my grandfather used to own a like insurance company. Like he
mhm.
was a broker, and you're talking about like, no surprise to you that towards the end of his life, because nobody's that out of the living room anymore. It's all very corporatized, and it's like you're an agent of somebody. You can't have your own company.
Yeah,
Um, and that's kind of just everything now. Like everything is so. It's like, well, we could save money if we just make them syndicate. You know?
yeah. Yeah. No, it's one of those. It's like, especially considering like after 11:30, like a lot of local broadcasts will just like cut to some terrible infomercial, and it's like, and it's because it seems like this guy kind of did this out of like he was the booker, he was the interviewer, he was the like he's just like he literally they were describing he's like set designer as well, like he physically made some of the sets, and so it was like one of those like true kind of like labor of loves thing, and he kind of just made it
Yeah,
work.
yeah,
And yeah, we have a like, you could do YouTube now, but it's just like to do a local kind of thing now. I just don't, I don't know if that exists anymore. Like, and maybe, it'd be interesting to know if anyone's listening, if does your local TV have, actual local broadcasting anymore? Because that it would be
yeah.
nice to know. It's just like, but yeah, that's all I got. I'm gonna do a for anyone still listening. I'm gonna do for TikTok and for social media and for YouTube Shorts. I'm gonna do if you saw Sinners. Here's 5 other films that you may want to watch. Um, and we're probably gonna start doing more of that type of stuff. Sometimes we'll do it in the show and kind of break it off, but sometimes we'll just do it solo. I'm just we're gonna I think we just cut it off just because you haven't seen Sinners yet, so it's like it's the which I'm
No,
gonna keep now.
also, I don't know if you've noticed, but in the last 90 seconds or so, our
Yes,
connection has gone from being perfect all show to
yes.
completely like
Your internet has
unusable.
decided it is time to end your show. David Letterman is not coming on.
Yeah. Uh,
So yeah.
before
So
I give our sign off, I should tell you I just got a text from somebody on or a Discord message from somebody, and I thought I would share it because it's silly. Uh, it's just a picture of Oscar Isaac, how HBO return.
oh, HBO what? I'm sorry.
Um, it's just a picture of Oscar Isaac. Says somehow HBO Max.
Oh, so it's somehow
I'll
Oscar
tell you
Isaac.
offline.
Yeah, yeah. So it's a picture of Oscar Isaac saying in Star Wars saying somehow HBO Max has returned. Yes, the internet's absolute favorite
Yes,
joke to go after Star Wars, which is like,
yes.
yeah. Anyway, I've already ranted enough about Star Wars fans and the worst
Yeah,
fandom. And, and I say this as somebody who covers Nazis.
yeah.
But anyway, do you want to, if
All
you
right.
can
Well,
you wrap
thanks
up?
everybody for listening. Yeah, yeah. Thanks everyone for listening. Hopefully, you can still hear any of this, and we'll be back here by noon on the 5th day for more Emerald City Video. And always remember to rewind your cassettes.